Hello, and welcome back to Terri Reid's Attic, a place where we share stories of things that go bump in the night. Sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy the stories.
During this episode, I thought I'd share some stories about ghostly happenings in some of the buildings in the Freeport area. These stories were collected when I was writing annual Halloween feature stories for the Freeport Journal-Standard. I really hope you enjoy them. I'm not going to use the real names of the people who shared these stories, just in case they don't want their names broadcast all over the virtual world. The Freeport Public Library. It was after 9 o'clock at night at the old Freeport Public Library, and the library was closed for the day. Linda, who worked in the youth section, had decided to stay late so she could finish the mural that she was painting on the wall of the playroom. Linda was quite an accomplished artist. She had walked out of the area to get more water for her paints, and when she returned, she decided to turn on a tape of music. During that time, the stereo system was located on a shelf under the front desk. She leaned down to adjust the sound and then pressed the play button. As she straightened, she looked up and saw a man standing about 8 feet in front of her. She remembered that he was dressed in a sky blue t-shirt and blue jeans and had a buzz haircut that was slightly shaggy. He looked friendly, Linda recalled. He was smiling and leaning against a shelf in a very casual, friendly manner. He was raising his left hand, just like he was going to wave. I started to say hi, Linda continued, but then he just wasn't there anymore. Linda guessed that she must have blinked her eyes because he didn't slowly vaporize. He was just there and then gone. I wasn't afraid. He seemed friendly, she recalled. But instead of working until 10, as she had planned, she decided to clean up immediately and go home. I guess I was a little spooked, she chuckled, if you'll forgive the pun. The OKeyDokey convenience store. Gus is not only an often seen ghost, but he's probably the only ghost that was nearly arrested by the Freeport Police Department. Almost every clerk to work at the OKeyDokey store on Douglas Street has had an experience with Gus. Gus is a slenderly built little old man with thinning hair, Tom, the owner of the OKeyDokey store, said. He doesn't do anything bad, just little pranks here and there. Gus likes to take the coffee pot out of the machine while the coffee is filling, or have a can of beans drop off the shelf for no apparent reason. Gus has been seen entering the front door of the store and going down the front aisle. After a while, the store clerk usually goes searching for the little old man, but no one has ever been found. The only other door in the store is a back door that has been deadlocked from the inside. Tom said that at one time the store had a connecting door to an apartment that sits behind the store. He has heard that there was a former occupant of the apartment that fits Gus's description. One night, after the store was closed, a strange thing happened. I got a call at about 11:30, Tom said. The Freeport Police Department was on the line. They said that they had seen someone in the store. I told them that that was impossible because we have a motion detector alarm system that would have picked up anyone in the store, and we also had a person monitoring the store, so they would have picked somebody up too. The police asked him to come down anyway. When I arrived at the store, Tom continued, I opened the door and the police checked out the entire interior, but they couldn't find anyone. When I asked them to describe who they saw, they described Gus, Tom said. Of course, when I told them who I thought it was, they didn't believe me. However, they couldn't offer any other explanation either. Perhaps Gus needed to do a little midnight shopping. The Jeanette Lloyd Theater. Sometimes the creative energy from artists in the theater is harnessed into something more, said Sam, former Freeport Junior High School teacher and technical director for the Jeanette Lloyd Theater. There are quite a few theaters with ghosts. The legend of Harold the Ghost has been around for about 30 years. There have been numerous articles in school newspapers and even more stories whispered in the hallways of the Freeport Junior High School. I remember once sending a student up to vacuum the catwalks. There was confetti up there from another show, and it kept falling down, Sam recalled. This kid was an athlete. I think he was a wrestler. He certainly wasn't anyone who could be intimidated easily. But when he came down from the catwalk, his face was white, Sam continued. He didn't want to talk about it, but when I asked him if he would go back up there again, he refused. Of course, Sam could understand the student's refusal. He had a close encounter with Harold himself. Usually it was the little things, Sam said. Things like the lights flickering when it's impossible because they are hooked up to a computer-generated system. Sometimes sections of lights would go off or on. Added to that, items are often missing from the set. I would usually just say, "Harold, I'm busy tonight. Knock it off." And he does, Sam said. But then there are other days. It was a Saturday morning, and Sam was alone in the theater working on a set. No one was in the building with him, but he was expecting a couple of people. Suddenly he heard voices and assumed that the crew had come in. He walked around and crossed in front of the set, but no one was there. There is no way that I could have missed a person if they had been there, Sam said. The doors in this theater close with a loud enough sound that I would have heard someone leave. Another hapless teacher, who wished to remain anonymous, had a frightening encounter with Harold. I realized at the end of the day that I had left some papers on the stage, he said. So I came in through the second floor of the theater and started to make my way down the stairs toward the stage. Suddenly, the room was plunged into pitch darkness, he recalls, and I thought I felt something brush past me. The teacher froze in his tracks and waited for a few moments before slowly retracing his steps back to the top of the theater. The lights went on before he reached the top. I decided that the papers could certainly wait until morning, he confessed. I had never believed in Harold before, but after that experience, I was a believer. Winneshiek Theater. Winneshiek Theater is the oldest continuous running amateur theater in the United States. With that claim to fame, small wonder that it should have its own ghost. The ghost of Winneshiek has been heard by many, but never seen. Often actors standing backstage can hear the familiar footsteps upstairs in the green room, but no face has been placed with the sound. My personal favorite encounter with the dramatic specter was on a clear spring day. We had opened the theater for auditions for Freeport Ho, a local production honoring the Lincoln-Douglas debate and the history of Freeport. We had propped open the front door, but had mainly used the stage door for the talent eager to sing and read for us. After several hours of auditions, we were all very tired, and so, without a thought, locked up the stage door and drove away. It wasn't until I was nearly home that I remembered I had propped open the front door of the theater, so I turned my car around and headed back. The door was still open as I walked into the front lobby. Then I heard the footsteps, definite footsteps, coming from the second floor. At that point, I didn't know if it was a ghost or perhaps some mere mortal intruders trying to steal some of the sound equipment. I rushed to the box office and called 911. They told me to immediately wait outside, and they would have someone there in a few moments. They were true to their word. Within moments, several police cars pulled up and several officers entered the theater. I was asked to stand on the outside corner and watch the two exits and Should anyone exit, yell loudly. I waited to do my part, watching the doors, waiting to be part of the excitement, hoping I wouldn't do something stupid like forget to scream. However, I didn't have an opportunity to test my bravery because after about 20 minutes, all of the officers left the building. "There's no one in there," one officer explained. "But I know I heard footsteps," I said. He nodded, started to say something, and then stopped. His partner came out a few moments later. "Oh, by the way," he said as he started to get into his squad car, "we turned on all the lights in the theater. You'll want to turn them off before you lock up." The police car left, and I walked back into the theater a little puzzled. Why hadn't they just turned off the lights? Then I heard the familiar shuffle of feet above my head once again. I knew that no person could be in the theater. Perhaps that explained why I was left to turn off the lights. Years later, my son was taking part in a play at Winneshiek. It's a little ironic that this happened to him because I was pregnant with him when I had my encounter. Now, as a college student, he didn't have to share the encounter with me this time. He'd finished with classes and headed over to the theater for practice. He knew he was at least an hour earlier than everyone, but because we live out in the country, it wouldn't have made sense for him to drive home only to have to drive back into town. He punched in the numbers on the security panel and let himself into the empty theater. He climbed the stairs to the green room and decided to take advantage of the empty couch by taking a nap before practice. No sooner had he closed his eyes than he heard someone else walking up the wooden stairs to the green room. With half-closed eyes, he looked at the door, waiting for whoever it was to walk in. But when the steps reached the landing before the door, they stopped. Finally, he got up, walked across the room, and opened the door. No one was out there. Being a member of our family and somewhat used to paranormal experiences, he shrugged, closed the door, and went back to the couch. He had just gotten comfortable again when he heard some noises from behind him, coming from the costume area. He sat up, looked into the darkened room that housed hundreds of costumes, and called out hesitantly, "Is anyone there?" Suddenly, he heard something knock. But this wasn't just a thump or a knock you'd do if you were knocking on a door. No, this knock sounded like the first part of the ditty, shave and a haircut. He waited and wasn't disappointed. A moment later, the final two knocks echoed in the upstairs. 2 bits.
Thank you for listening to Terri Reads Attic. If you enjoyed the stories, please consider becoming one of our supporters. Look for us on YouTube, as well as through your favorite podcast provider. If you have a question or comment, please email us at stories@terrireid.com. That's stories@terrireid.com. Until next time, let me leave you with an old Celtic prayer. From ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, good Lord, deliver us.